So a couple of weeks back, we made a video regarding why I love living in Australia and the reasons behind it. And in that video itself, we asked our audience if you want to see a second part of this video where I will talk about the things I don't like about Australia. And the answer to that question was overwhelmingly yes. So in this video, we're gonna do that. Let's talk about the things I don't like about Australia. Now, before I get started talking about these things I don't like about Australia, please be mindful that these are based on my own personal experiences living in Australia for more than 16 years. Your experience might be different when you come here in Australia, but I personally think that some of the things you will agree to it as well, especially if you are coming from overseas. So without wasting a minute, let's discuss about the first thing I don't like about Australia, which is the internet. The internet in Australia is so slow. And I went and did some research about it as well. Australia ranks 74th in the world when it comes to broadband internet speeds, which is obviously pathetic considering we are living in the first world country. Come on, Australia, you can do better than that. Now, obviously, this problem has been going around for quite some time. So it's not that the government did nothing about it. A while back, they launched this scheme called NBN, National Broadband Network. And all I have to say about this scheme is, to be honest, even after launching this national broadband network, there is not much improvement in the internet speeds. And Australia has been over the years going backwards instead of moving forward in regards to internet speeds, especially broadband internet speeds. However, there's a bit of hope now, especially with the mobile technologies and mobile internet. Australia does rank in the top 20 countries when it comes to the mobile internet speeds, which is finally good. But when it comes to broadband, it's still a long way to go. So that was the first thing I don't like about Australia. Let's move on to the second one. Shopping centers. Shopping centers close here too soon. By 5 o'clock, everything is shutting down. And if you're new to the country, you will be like, what? 5 o'clock, everything closed down? Yes, that's how it works. Now, after living in Australia for a while, you get used to it. But generally speaking, when you first come here, it is something you certainly don't like, especially if you're coming from some of the Asian countries, where it is quite common for people to go for late night shopping or for late night out suppers. You certainly won't experience those sort of things here in Australia. And that is something I don't like. Although on the weekends, in some of the shopping centers in major cities like in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, we will see that the shopping centers might be open till 9 o'clock or so on. But on the weekdays, 5 o'clock, everything is dead. That's it. Number 3, parking fee. Parking fee in Australia is unbelievable. And I'm not joking. Australia is the country with the highest parking fee in the world. We pay a parking fee on an average of $30 daily rate. That is actually a wage for many people in different countries. And we are paying that amount in just parking fee. And the worst culprit, in my personal opinion, is the hospitals. I mean, hospital parkings. And I'm not even talking about the hospitals in the city areas. I'm talking about the hospitals in the suburban areas. You have to probably mortgage your house in order to pay the parking fee for some of those hospital parking. It is just insane. The next item on our list is the distance. Australia is too far from everywhere. And I'm not even talking about going overseas. Within the country itself, you will feel like one part of the Australia is too far away from the other part. For an example, if you are going from Sydney to Perth, it takes 5 hours on the plane. Again, unbelievable sort of thing, right? And Google Map tells me that if you want to drive from Sydney to Perth, it will take you 41 hours. Nah, forget about it. We're not going there. And that is one of the reasons why people living in the west coast or at the top end of Australia prefer to go to other countries, like for example Bali in Indonesia, instead of traveling to Sydney or Melbourne, because it's just too far away for them to travel to these part of the Australia itself, which obviously means traveling is not only just far, but it's usually quite expensive as well. And after COVID, the prices of traveling have obviously gone insane. The next thing on my list is houses in Australia. Now, I understand that the houses gets all the approvals that are needed and they're generally safe to live in, but I'm talking about the quality of the houses itself. Now, the country I come from, the houses are usually made from steel and concrete. But here, most of the houses are made with wood and plaster. So if you see the wall behind me, if I go and punch that wall harder, I can easily damage and make a big hole in that wall. And I don't need to even punch that hard anyways. And if you're moving some furniture in your house, you have to be very extra careful because you either could be scratching your floor or you could be damaging the walls easily. And it's not like I have lived only in this house in my life here in Australia. I have lived in many houses houses, from apartments to townhouses to a proper one-story house as well. But in my personal opinion, they all were pretty similar when it comes to the quality. And when it comes to winter, it can be really challenging for us to make the houses warm. Even if you have heating on, it takes forever to heat up your houses. And the winters here are pretty cold, especially in the southern parts of Australia. The next one is the weather. Now, I specifically live in Melbourne, but generally speaking, the weather in Australia can be a bit tricky. Why? Because the northern parts of Australia, which is the top end of Australia, you only get two type of seasons: wet season and dry season. Means rainy season and not rainy season. However, if you look at the bottom half of Australia, which is the southern part of Australia and where most of the people live, we get to see 4 seasons in a year, which is summer, winter, autumn and spring. But even though we get 4 seasons, sometimes you can experience these 4 seasons not in a whole year but rather in one day itself. For example, right now outside it's a bit cloudy and it's a bit cold, but in a couple of hours later it will be quite warm and sunny, and by the evening it will be very cold again. So the weather at times in different cities can be a bit tricky, and if you're moving from one part of the Australia to the other, you will see a huge change in weather usually, depending upon where you're moving again. And last but not the least on our list is the summer season. Now don't get me wrong, summer is beautiful here in Australia, but the things that come along with the summer, things like insects, for example spiders, but the worst culprit in my personal opinions are the flies. They are so annoying, and even if you try to get them away, they'll still come back somehow and stay on your body forever. They just love hugging you for some reason. Now these were some of the things that I specifically don't like about Australia. Now I would love to hear your thoughts on these things, and if you have any other things to mention in the comment section below. Now before we end the video, I would like to answer a very important question, which is there any racism here in Australia? Now answer to that question is a little bit tricky, because in my own personal experience of 16 plus years, I hardly had only 1 or 2 incidents where some racist comments were made, and those comments were made by some random people on the street and I kind of ignored them and went on my way. But generally speaking, Australia is a pretty safe country to live in. I'm not saying you may not experience any racism at all. You could experience some petty racist comments made by some random strangers sometimes, but it is not very common thing, and there are special laws regarding discriminations and so on as well. So if you ever felt that you have been target of a racist attack or so on, you can always report that to police and other authorities to let them take the action necessary to catch these culprits. But generally speaking, Australia is a pretty safe place and Australians are pretty good people. But as always, use your common sense when you are in different areas or different parts of the country. I hope you find this information useful, and if you haven't watched a video about the things I really love about living in Australia, I highly recommend you to check this video over here, as I explain the reasons why I love living here in Australia as well. And if you have any question or any comments, please leave them in the comment section below. And if you would like us to make a video on some other topic, please don't hesitate, put that in the comment section below as well. We'd love to hear your ideas on that. And as always, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.